E3 and welcome to the 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational. We've got a packed house here. Excited to see 8 YouTube and Twitch personalities battle it out in a 4-team Waseda-style format as we get set to see some of the new features in Pokkén Tournament Deluxe. Welcome in, I'm Jordan Kent alongside with our 2 analysts, Vicky, Kitty, and D1. And Vicky, as we get set to see these core gameplay mechanics that our Twitch personalities obviously have mastered, but our YouTube personalities might try to grasp, what are they focusing in on?
So what you want to focus on are the different phases of the game. For those of you who are starting out for Pokkén Tournament, please be aware what field phase and duel phase is. As we see our contestants battle out for Pokkén Tournament Deluxe, you guys will see the different changes and how the battling will continue between field phase and duel phase.
And D1, there are some differences in this version, obviously. There's a reason why you call it Deluxe. What are we expected to see from the Pokkén Tournament edition that we are familiar with on Wii U? What are the differences with this Deluxe edition?
True, there are definitely a lot of people thinking, why should I pick up the Switch version of the game if it came out on Wii U? Well, let me tell you something. There's Krogunk, Darkrai, Scizor, and Empoleon. Characters that were available in arcade in Japan are now finally coming stateside. And not only that, we also have the Decidueye. Also, there's split screen mode, which allows people to be able to play locally at home. And not only split screen, but you could also have 2-player on one screen playing. So one character in the foreground and one in the background duking it out. And the last thing I wanted to mention is that we also have 2 new support Pokemon with Litten and Popplio.
Lots of exciting new things in this Pokkén Tournament Deluxe edition that are 4 teams and 8 competitors will be taking place in. And Vicky, you look at sort of how to understand some of the core mechanics as we mentioned, and sort of being able to not only master and control your Pokemon, but then read and react to what the other opponent is doing.
Right, so how the game normally works with mechanic-wise is a rock, paper, scissors game. You want to always be one step ahead of your opponent and understand what beats what. So, you know, you always have to be one step ahead and understand if you do manage to win that trade, you do manage to get a lot out of it, like a critical that deals extra damage.
Let's take a look at our bracket and take you through a tour of some of the action we'll have going on this morning. Match 1, you're going to see, here's how things break down. Best 2 out of 3 rounds, that's going to win you a game. Best 2 out of 3 games, that's going to win you a match, which means you can advance in the bracket. You see the matchups here. We'll have the YouTube personalities battle it out first, then the Twitch personalities. If there is a 3rd game necessary to decide a match, then you will have the winner from the YouTube personalities taking on the winner of the Twitch personalities to see who advances in the match. So it's very exciting. And D1, to see, obviously, these Twitch personalities, very, very seasoned at this game particularly, against these YouTube personalities that they're still trying to grasp maybe some of the fundamentals here.
Oh, indeed. And let's not even forget about some of the pros that we have here as well, teaming up with these Twitch and YouTube personalities. It's going to be really interesting seeing how they face off, because some of the pros that we have in-house come from different fighting game communities. So I think we're going to see some really interesting things here today.
We're ready for our first match, so please welcome to the stage Matt Pat from Game Theory and his wife Stephanie Patrick as they get set to take center stage in our first matchup of the morning. Please give them a warm round of applause. And now it's interesting because we have the husband-wife duo going up. After they go on, our Twitch personalities, Ken and Alistair, will then battle it out. And as we mentioned, if it's necessary, a 3rd game, you have the winner from the YouTube personalities taking on the winner of the Twitch personalities. As we said, Stephanie Patrick, wife of Matt Pat. Throwing them in the fire right off the bat here, Vicky.
I just hope whoever loses gets to compensate and do the dishes later that night, because there are going to be some hands being thrown.
And D1, these YouTube personalities, they're going to select their character prior to the match, and so they're obviously going to know who's going with who. But when you look at getting a chance to get familiarized with this, what are some of those core things that people that are first getting introduced to this really need to learn to grasp?
When it comes to a Pokkén Tournament, first and foremost, not only do you have to understand what kind of character you're going into, but the support Pokemon that can help also complement your character. Depending on which support Pokemon you're using, you can actually have the upper hand in a match that maybe wasn't in your favor at first.
When you talk about the support Pokemon, there's offensive and defensive types of support Pokemon. How interesting is it that a lot of these fighters will try to find that support Pokemon that either contrasts their playstyle or supports it?
Oh, indeed. There's some Pokemon that actually allow players that are really into rushdown find a way to get through projectile zoners, while other Pokemon can actually just clear a path for those people that maybe get pressured way too much. And here we already have it. Scizor, one of my favorite Pokemon, taking the stage.
Two of the new Pokemon you can catch in Pokkén Tournament Deluxe on Switch as that comes out. Matt Pat versus Stephanie Pat. Scizor versus Empoleon. Let's get this started off in field phase right now. Scizor gonna unleash a couple projectiles right here, get some damage on Empoleon. Meanwhile, Empoleon doing a fine job of blocking Vicky, and being able to master that block is critical.
It is very critical, and as we saw right there, already a phase change. This is where you're gonna see the most damage being done. This is dual phase. You wanna rack up as much damage as possible, and immediately with another phase shift right there,
Matt Pat as Empoleon putting some pressure on Stephanie Pat, who is going to be Scizor. Meanwhile, Scizor doing a fine job of zoning out Empoleon early on here, D1.
But you already see Empoleon just using Aqua Jet to get inside. Empoleon, not quite the fastest character, but if he's able to use Aqua Jet, he has 4 different options out of it that allows him to get in. And already right there, taking the first round over Scizor.
Empoleon with the grab to secure that one. That means Matt Pat gets the victory. If Matt wins one more round, he's victorious. And there's something about marriage advice. You can either be victorious or happy. So I'll let you think about that one, Matt, as you get set for the next round here. Now, as we get set, we saw with Scizor, Stephanie Pat really struggling for the most part to get a lot of big hits on Empoleon. Empoleon doing a fine job of blocking Vicky.
although Empoleon may be very slow in his own way, when he gets in, he does immense amount of damage, and that is exactly what we saw that last game. But at the moment, we're not seeing that right now. We're seeing a completely different game compared to the last game we were introduced to.
Full synergy gauge for both players right now. And how important is that synergy gauge, D1, as far as the timing of when you want to use it?
So with the synergy gauge, you can actually use it to get some pressure off of you if you're blocking. You can get some recoverable health and also access to a burst attack, which will be able to turn the tides of a match.
Empoleon with the grab, Matt Pat with the early lead, 326, 237 on the health bar. Scizor trying to get some damage done in field phase. Meanwhile, going to go ahead and shift it right here. Stephanie Patrick trying to hang on and force a third round in this game between the two that are the husband and wife. Meanwhile, Empoleon with yet another grab, and Vicky, Stephanie unable to negate those grabs.
That's quite unfortunate right there, but she's activating her burst mode right now. That burst mode does a lot of damage, exactly 223 to be exact. He needs to watch out with only 51 health. Oh, but unfortunately, misses it just by a tad bit.
Here comes the support Pokemon with Latia. Stephanie Pat trying to give Matt Pat a to-do list and get to the third round here. However, Empoleon into the synergy burst, and Stephanie Pat with the victory. And we're going to have a third round to decide this game between the two from Game Theory. And what we saw was Stephanie Pat getting into that synergy burst and being able to apply some pressure on Empoleon right there.
And Matt Pat did activate his synergy burst as well, but was unable to take advantage of that opportunity too.
Third and final round in this game between Matt Pat and Stephanie Pat, our two YouTube personalities. A couple of early hits here for Empoleon. And when you look at the support Pokemon, D1, how can they play a huge role in this third and final round?
If we're looking at Matt Pat's Pokemon Fennekin right there, you actually are able to use a move that is able to get the opponent off of you upon wake up. And now looking at Stephanie Patrick with the Latias, if I'm not mistaken, you're able to close in the Pokemon, making it really difficult for them to move around. So here it is, Scizor already having a tough time trying to zone. As you can see, Empoleon is always getting inside, using Scizor using the Swords Dance, which is great for actually making it difficult for your opponents to get inside. But as you can see, it covers the sides better than the front.
Huge advantage right now for Matt Pat as Empoleon enters synergy gauge. This could be enough to close the match here. However, Scizor not ready to give it up. Gets it knocked back into that support Pokemon right there. And now it's close. Stephanie Pat with the light advantage, but no! Matt Pat gonna go ahead and get the victory over Stephanie Pat. Impressive performance by Empoleon, and we saw Scizor, Stephanie Pat, try to get some damage late in that one, try to turn things around, but what we saw from Empoleon and Matt Pat the entire time, able to sort of stay in that mid-zone area and keep Scizor nice and uncomfortable.
That is where Empoleon does the most damage, actually. We did mention that earlier, and what we also saw right at the end there, how the support Pokemon was able to help Stephanie follow up with more attacks and keep that distance, but unfortunately, it just was not enough.
And you look at two Pokemon in Scizor and Empoleon here, D1, two Pokemon that typically specialize in that rush down type of play where you really want to get up in the opponent's face and apply some pressure, but we saw Empoleon able to keep Scizor at bay, and that's what made it difficult.
Yeah, man, the Ice Beam right there from Empoleon is such a great zoning tool, and right afterwards, you're able to slide right in once you apply that little bit of pressure and get up in the opponent's face. Empoleon has such great tools to even break counters, but we're gonna go into this next match here with Alistair versus Ken.
Alistair going with Mewtwo, Ken going with Scizor early in this one. Scizor getting the attack here on Mewtwo, applying some early pressure. Mewtwo, however, able to knock back Scizor. An early advantage right now for Alistair. The nice combo up against the wall, gonna knock Scizor back. And you look at the type of player Mewtwo is. Mewtwo, once again, kind of one of those all-around players, D1.
Yeah, Mewtwo definitely one of the strongest characters in the game. Has great zoning tool, and that Hyper Beam dishes out a lot of damage. And another thing to look at is both of these players have the same assist support Pokemon right there with Litten. Litten, if your HP is rather low, you're actually able to dish out more damage. It is a projectile, and right there, first game going to
Alistair getting the victory right there with Mewtwo. Very impressive. And listen, if you don't have a Master Ball against Mewtwo, it's going to be really tough sometimes. So very impressive performance right there. Can Ken force a third round, or else the victory is going to go this match to Matt, Pat, and Alistair. Let's pick this one up early on. Again, more pressure just being applied by Mewtwo and able to just get Scizor up against that wall, get those combos, and Vicky, it is very difficult sometimes when you get pinned up against the edge of the stage.
Yeah, it really does, because not only are you stuck against the wall, but you're limited to so much stage control that you take so much damage. Although you can't ever get KO'd if you are pressed against the wall immensely, but immediately we're seeing Scizor taking it over Mewtwo. Mewtwo and Scizor being two characters that really like to fight mid-range.
There you have it. Alistair making quick work of Ken, getting the 2 victories right there. And so that is game, set, and match for the combination of Matt, Pat, and Alistair. They will advance in our bracket. Big round of applause for Stephanie, Patrick, and Ken. We'll let Stephanie and Matt go ahead and work that one out a little bit later. I'm sure they'll get a chance to practice more Pokemon Tournament Deluxe. And D1, you look at Mewtwo in that last match, and it was really interesting to see the combination of the projectiles to keep Scizor at bay. Scizor never really had an opportunity to get up close in Mewtwo's face and apply some of those combos and pressure.
Yeah, Mewtwo has this great tool in the Cycle Cut where he's able to dash in and out and throw it yet again. His grab comes out quite deceptively fast as well. When you look at it, he's already in your face and you're taking damage. So I think with that zoning tool that Mewtwo has, it's very difficult sometimes for people to deal with, especially if your back's to the corner.
Mewtwo also has one of the best homing attacks in the game, so it could be really difficult to try to jump around him to probably attack from behind, because he's it's so large that it could actually be counted as an anti-air. So you have to look out for that as well when you're trying to approach a character like Mewtwo.
Well, we saw in that match between Alistair and Ken, Alistair using Mewtwo, Ken going with Scizor, that Mewtwo was just doing a fine job of zoning out Scizor. And when you get those all-around type players that can play either close or from afar, they're really trying to read and react on the type of player that they are facing. And Scizor being a rush-down type player, Mewtwo can just sit back and use its wide array of projectiles, D1, to keep Scizor at bay. And it was never really even close at any moment in this one.
Yeah, the entire time you just saw Alistair zone in space right around Ken, trying to force him to approach, and he limited his options really well because he threw projectiles not only from the ground but also the sky, and it really looked like Ken just didn't know what was coming.
Let's take a look at the updated bracket as we see the team of Alistair and Matt Pat advance. They will be taking on the winners of our next match. We'll get a chance to introduce them here shortly. And so that's looking like a pretty powerful combination right there. Matt, Pat, and Alistair. We'll have to see how that one got seeded. But we go back to some of these gameplay mechanics that we're seeing from these players here, Vicky. And it's really interesting as well, too, that ability to read your opponent. And we saw a lot of grabs being executed, but also how valuable is it to time that counter properly with some of the attacks you're going against?
It's very important because it can make a difference whether you're pushed against the wall or not, pushed at a very big disadvantage. So you have to understand, okay, I'm put into a very bad position. What can I do to get around this? You jump over a character like Mewtwo where he can catch you even in the air, as we saw earlier in that replay. You have to understand, okay, I'm put into a bad position. Maybe I need to take a step back, hold shield, but you don't want to hold shield for too long because that gets us up to a grab.
Let's get set for our next match here. It's going to be between JD Witherspoon and Nairo's going to be Team 3. Meanwhile, Team 4, Black Nerd Comedy and Justin Wong. So our first matchup will be JD Witherspoon taking on Black Nerd Comedy. Meanwhile, waiting for the next matchup will be Nairo and Justin Wong. Welcome them up to the stage. And this is going to be exciting here, D1. We've got obviously some very seasoned fighting players here that have done a fantastic job here. They have got some very good proficiency with Pokkén Tournament Deluxe. However, our YouTube personalities, we saw in the situation of Matt Pat and Stephanie Patrick, as each round was advancing, they were almost picking up more of the mechanics of this game.
Oh, indeed. You can tell that when it comes to Pokkén Tournament, it is easy to pick up, but as far as mastering it, that's the hard part.
Certainly is, and there's a lot of mechanics, and I had a chance to chat with Alistair prior to this, and he was talking about the importance of being able to do that counter-attack dash cancel. A lot of times when you get a Pokemon like Scizor that's getting zoned out by Mewtwo, how do you use that counter-attack dash cancel to sometimes bait your opponent into getting them into a position where you can take advantage of them?
So as long as you know your opponent isn't using a move that is able to pierce the counterattack, you're able to build synergy, which is your meter that allows you to gain burst. And also, you get an opportunity. You don't take any damage when you go into the counterattack. And if you go for the dash cancel, you have quick access to any of your options in neutral after making sure to basically absorb the attack.
You also close in a lot of space when you counterattack dash cancel, so you're applying a lot more pressure and taking more stage control against the opponent as well.
We're seeing a lot of these new Pokemon that you will get introduced to in Pokkén Tournament Deluxe being used right now. Right now we're going to have a matchup of Darkrai and Croagunk, and Darkrai, one of those Pokemon, D1, that's going to be a zoner. Meanwhile, Croagunk, more so all around, so this is going to be interesting to see the playstyle that Croagunk's going to do, because you know Darkrai is going to want to keep Croagunk at bay.
Croagunk is a very silly character coming into Pokkén Tournament Deluxe. If you press his special button, the A button, he has so many different random moves that come out. You don't quite know what's going to come at you. And as far as Darkrai is concerned, he's a character that specializes in traps. If he's able to catch you with that Dark Void, you go into Nightmare mode. And once you're in Nightmare mode, things get way more difficult facing off against Darkrai. He has more moves that pierce as well.
A legendary, mythical creature of the dark taking on a ninja frog, basically. We've got Croagunk going on against Darkrai. That's what we love about Pokkén Tournament Deluxe. All of these Pokemon here getting a chance, even playing field, to take on each other. Still right now, nobody with an early advantage. You see JD Witherspoon with Darkrai. Meanwhile, Black Nerd Comedy going with Croagunk. And there you go, the support Pokemon coming in, creating some damage.
Croagunk actually trying to find his way in. As D1 did mention earlier, this character is a very RNG. If you hold his A button, he could get positive stats or negative stats. That would be terrible for him to get that negative stat around the end when it would really make a difference within the match.
Oh, we see JD Witherspoon, though, getting knocked back by Black Nerd Comedy, and Croagunk, however, able to respond right there. Has that full synergy gauge. It's getting filled right there. However, has the support of Reshiram ready to go whenever he wants, D1.
Oh, absolutely. Reshiram dishes out a decent amount of damage. And right there, you already see Darkrai just having a tough time dealing with this Croagunk. You know, the Croagunk already activating burst mode. What's going to happen here?
Croagunk in burst mode, trying to put some pressure on Darkrai. Can he connect right here? No, won't. Darkrai able to block that. Able to do a fine job of reading Croagunk. However, time is up. You've got to operate a little bit quicker. That first victory in that round is going to go ahead and go to Black Nerd Comedy and Croagunk. Very impressive. JD Witherspoon and Darkrai. Hey, listen, you got another round, JD. You got a chance to bounce back here. And so, Vicky, you look at the choice of when to deploy support Pokemon. What's typically going through the mind of players as far as when they need to use that? Are they reading? If it's an offensive Pokemon, they're going to read the opponent. If it's defensive, you're waiting for the right time.
I think it's like two different things. I feel like it could be depending on the player's preference, what they feel like they lack as a player, and what their Pokemon lacks in the neutral. So if their Pokemon is just very slow and they're not able to close in that gap to get as much space as possible done and apply all that pressure, maybe they want a support Pokemon to help speed up their boost.
Croagunk applying some pressure to Darkrai, and what's interesting, D1, is we're seeing Croagunk really succeed right now, keeping some distance from Darkrai and zoning Darkrai out.
Yeah, I was actually really surprised seeing how Darkrai, being the character that's great at zoning, is instead being zoned out here by Croagunk. The bombs being placed on the field have made it very difficult for Darkrai to approach.
Darkrai activating its synergy burst. Let's see if we can connect with the burst move. This might do it. No, misses, however. Meanwhile, Croagunk up against the wall. Darkrai trying to apply some pressure. Here comes the burst move, though. And this is going to be fantastic. What do we have here?
We have the Infinite Eclipse dishing out 198 damage. This should possibly be the end.
You can sit back and watch the credits roll right there as JD Witherspoon and Darkrai bounce back to take the next round and force a third round between our two YouTube personalities, D1.
Oh, and right now we actually have Black Nerd Comedy and
JD Witherspoon, talking smack,
Talking
pointing
smack,
heads
up and off.
behind the monitor. Wow. Wow. I like it. No love lost between these two as we get to our third and final round. Let's pick things up early on here. Krogunk getting some pressure on Darkrai, trying to zone Darkrai out, getting up close in the face of Darkrai now. And you see getting knocked back right there. You can't hold that shield and that block forever.
You can't, and you see Krogunk is actually planting the bombs on the opposite side of Darkrai and then forcing him to move towards those bombs with his own projectiles. It could be really tricky, and you have to watch out because those bombs are not activated, but they actually deploy on their own.
Krogunk gonna activate the Synergy Burst right now. That's gonna obviously do some more damage. Meanwhile, Darkrai with the buff of its own. Here comes the Synergy Burst move, but no, misses once again. And that is huge for Darkrai because Darkrai having a chance to build a Synergy Burst and also has that Cresselia as the support Pokemon ready to go and gonna deploy it right now, D1.
Already getting that recoverable health back. Look at that, 408, looking quite healthy.
Krogunk getting in the face of Darkrai. Darkrai trying to get the grab right there, misses. Fine blocking right there. Nice little combo by Darkrai. JD Witherspoon versus Black Nerd Comedy. The best of three right here. It comes down to this. Meanwhile, Krogunk getting a major hit, doing some nice damage on Darkrai right there, Vicky.
Yes, it's incredible how much damage output Darkrai actually has, but Krogunk's still holding his own. He could still definitely do this. He's applying as much pressure as he possibly can, and they're gonna try to put themselves into dual face to rack up all the damage as possible there.
D1, only 10 seconds left in this one. You've got the advantage for Darkrai, and Darkrai gonna go ahead and get the knockout. Wow. Black Nerd Comedy thrown off by the confidence and the smack talk of JD Witherspoon. You see the swagger from JD Witherspoon as well too, getting that victory over Black Nerd Comedy. So now we hand it over to our Twitch personalities. We're gonna have Nairo taking on Justin Wong. It's going to be very exciting here. And what we saw, Darkrai dropping the first round here. However, it seemed like JD Witherspoon finally had a sip of coffee and woke up and picked his game up.
Yeah, I'm gonna tell you right now, I saw Nairo, he was definitely giving JD some tips, and after JD talked some smack to Black Nerd Comedy, I don't know what happened, but his confidence shot through the roof, and that third round, he was actually moving. You saw he was just swinging left and right, throwing out those projectiles, and that was it. Black Nerd Comedy losing the first game.
Exciting matchup here. We've got Mewtwo versus Weavile. As we mentioned, Mewtwo, one of those standard types, as we like to say, can operate from afar, zone you out, and get up in your face. Meanwhile, Weavile certainly want to get up close and apply some pressure right in your mug.
Yeah, and if you guys don't know who's playing who, Nairo will be playing Mewtwo, while Justin Wong with Weavile.
Justin Wong and Weavile getting the first couple initial hits, going to go ahead and shift the face here. Meanwhile, Mewtwo going to get some pressure and knock back Weavile right here. And nice air combo in the juggle right there, Vicky.
And that is the exact positioning where Mewtwo wants to be mid-range, but in your face, he could apply so much pressure. You do have to watch out because if that Weavile gets a critical and manages to rack up as much damage as possible, close range is where Weavile excels the most.
Weavile with a very nice combo right there. Mewtwo able to knock him back. And D1, talk a little bit about low stance, high stance. We're seeing some of that being deployed right now as these two players are really up close and personal and trying to read each other.
And the cool thing about low stance is that you're able to actually low profile, depending on the character that you're using, certain moves. If there's a move that goes rather high, you can duck underneath and get a free opportunity to counterattack.
Nairo and Mewtwo getting knocked back. Weavile going to go ahead and enter that Synergy Burst mode. We've got 30 seconds left in this match. Has Mewtwo on the ropes. Weavile trying to apply some pressure, and that will do it. Able to burst through the block right there. And now the pressure cooker heats up a little bit. One more victory in this round, and you've got JD Witherspoon and Nairo that will advance.
And something to keep into consideration at the very end there, when Weavile was using their burst mode, burst for Weavile was actually a short-range counter, so if Mewtwo would have thrown an attack, that burst could be immediately activating that counter, just like it does for every other burst.
Absolutely right. Right now, both fighters in each other's face, applying some pressure. Mewtwo with a nice grab, going to do some damage right there. Early advantage Mewtwo, 57 seconds left, plenty of time. Still going to go ahead and try to push Weavile up against the edge of the stage here and just doing a fine job of pinning Weavile back. And look at all that damage Nairo was able to apply, D1.
And not only all that amazing damage that Nairo could apply, but you have to be afraid because right now going into the third round, we have Justin Wong with full burst.
Justin Wong with full burst. Nairo, meanwhile, with Mewtwo, able to get the victory on Weavile. So let's go to our third and final round to decide this game. Very exciting right here. Meanwhile, Mewtwo going to go ahead, try to get the aerial on Weavile. Misses right there, but how about the juggling right here, D1?
Nairo is actually on a tear. Opening up with that Hyper Beam and also getting a combo into the Fire Punch, Ice Punch, and Thunder Punch. How is Justin Wong going to be able to bring it back?
Nairo, Justin Wong coming down to the end here in this round. A third and final one. Victory for each one of them. Mewtwo once again applying the pressure on Weavile.
This side strike. Okay, Justin Wong, 71 health left. This is impressive play right here from Nairo.
And Nairo using Cresselia to get some of that health back. Meanwhile, Burst Mode activated for Weavile and Justin Wong. You've got to lay it all out on the line at this point, getting some pressure and some support from the support Pokemon. Here comes the Burst move, but no, gonna be blocked by Nairo. Nairo counters with that juggle up against the wall here, Vic.
And all that pressure against the wall, will Nairo take it right here? Only 0 health, and Nairo takes it over Justin Wong.
From the brink. Very impressive. So Nairo and JD Witherspoon will advance. Hats off to Black Nerd Comedy and Justin Wong for a hard-fought battle. And really, we saw the Mewtwo. We've talked about being standard in that matchup against Scizor. The previous match, we saw Mewtwo really working with distance, but now against Weavile, operated right in the face of Weavile and applied a lot of pressure up against the wall.
All I'm telling you right now is it looks like teams with Mewtwo are excelling. I don't know, man. It's a little scary.
Those Mewtwo teams certainly doing a very good job. And as we mentioned, Mewtwo, one of those standard players, as they like to say, that can really work both as a zoner or a rush type Pokemon. And especially in this match, we saw Mewtwo really taking advantage, Vicky, of really countering some of the attacks from Weavile and then doing a fine job of getting into some combos with some juggles.
Yeah, there was times too where Justin Wong was able to close in that gap and rack up a lot of damage on Nairo when he would win the rock, paper, scissors train, but unfortunately it just was not enough, and Nairo was just able to be on top of that RPS train all the time.
Let's take a look at the replay. And D1, tell me what you're seeing here as we roll this replay between Mewtwo and Weavile.
Okay, so right there, you see Justin Wong trying to use Frogadier to apply some pressure, which worked out really well in his favor. And right here, as Justin Wong went for the burst attack, observe Nairo actually putting up his shield. I thought he didn't have shield up. Goes right around Weavile and uses that amazing homing attack just to get the wall splat right there. And that dive kick, putting Justin Wong in such a tough situation. Nairo, I wasn't quite sure if he was going to be able to finish it, but right there, those two light attacks was all he needed.
And D1, what we're seeing from these Twitch personalities is their ability to mix up their attacks high-low. We talked about that high and low stance also. How proficient do you have to be at that in order to really keep your opponent on their heels?
You have to, of course, understand what your character gets out of the high stance and low stance. Certain characters like Gengar, if they actually hold up when they go into high stance, they're able to avoid low attacks. While other characters, they have actually different attributes when it comes to going to high stance and low stance. So you have to do a lot of studying when it comes to this to get on top of your opponent when it comes to Pokkén tournament DMs.
I do know for some characters, high stance do grant them extra bonuses. For Gardevoir, for example, it actually helps her meter come back faster. And Empoleon, when you actually use Empoleon's lower stance, he could duck under some moves. It's kind of incredible because he's pretty tall.
Let's take a look at the updated bracket as we get set for our finals here. Now, the finals will be a best 3 out of 5 games to determine this match. And right now, you see Matt, Pat, and Alistair getting set to take on JD, Witherspoon, and Nairo. So, of course, we're most likely going to see a couple of Mewtwo's here in this match. But let's get to the sort of analysis of JD and Matt Pat. Matt Pat started off strong. Stephanie Pat getting a victory. That went to 3 rounds as well. But then JD Witherspoon really finding that confidence up against Black Nerd Comedy and getting the victory. So let's bring them out here and get set for our championship final match. We've got Matt Pat and JD Witherspoon facing off against each other, and Alistair versus Nairo. Matt Pat and Alistair on a team, and then Nairo and JD Witherspoon trying to bring home the championship for themselves. So get set to welcome them out to the stage. And really, as these YouTube personalities face off, we talked about how it's almost like watching your child walk because they're starting to learn more and more as the game goes on. But when you're getting introduced to this, do you think it's better to try and zone sometimes, or do you think it's better to just get up close, apply some pressure, because our YouTube personalities might not be able to read and counter quite as well as the Twitch personalities can?
I think the best thing to do is to not have tunnel vision and rely on only one strategy, because then you become a one-trick pony and you're easier to read and counter. So if you're able to actually mix it up and stay in close or zone, that's when things get difficult.
Well, let's welcome up our fighters to the stage, obviously talking about some extra strategy in the back. You've got Matt, Pat, and Alistair taking on JD, Witherspoon, and Nairo. Our first match will be Matt, Pat taking on JD Witherspoon. JD Witherspoon already bumping those gums, talking all that trash right now to Matt Pat. Let's see if Matt Pat has got a game theory to win this one right here. And as we saw Matt Pat, he really excelled with the Empoleon and getting some pressure and some grabs. However, JD Witherspoon, his previous match, using a fine job of connecting with some of those synergy bursts, Vicky.
Yeah, what MatPat is going to want to look out for mostly is, although Empoleon is very slow, his moves do make up for that. He is allowed a lot of movement options out of his attacks, actually. So when he throws out that Ice Beam, not only can he slide in it, you have the option to do nothing out of it. But when you are in the mid-air and you press X, you kind of create an area of effect of ice that you could also use to kind of sidestep, slide away from your opponent as well.
Well, both Matt and JD are going to go with different Pokemon potentially for this match. It's going to be interesting to see who they choose. Do they go with what they had, or do they maybe go with something different here, D1, to throw their opponent off guard and not let them scout?
Yeah, right now I'm actually waiting to see. Not trying to, guess anything here, but it looks like JD Witherspoon, since he went with Darkrai before, I'm guessing he probably might see it again.
There it is.
There it is.
Darkrai versus Empoleon. And Vicky, we were playing the other day, and Empoleon, the burst move out of synergy mode, there's something special about that one.
His burst is actually kind of incredible because of the fact you can't shield it. It is a command grab. So the only way to counter around his burst is by jumping over it.
And that's going to certainly take some tough timing right there. We've got Darkrai versus Empoleon. Darkrai being played by JD Witherspoon. MatPat going to go ahead and go with Empoleon right now. Some early pressure being applied by JD Witherspoon, trying to zone Empoleon. Maybe some coaching provided by Nairo, we'll see. Meanwhile, Alistair with some advice from MatPat. Empoleon getting in, getting a couple early hits on Darkrai, and already we see Empoleon getting in the face of Darkrai and applying some pressure here, D1.
So the main thing you saw there is that at first, JD Witherspoon was doing an impressive job of zoning with the Dark Pulse, but what happened was, finally, we saw MatPat opt to go with the Ice Beam to get inside and use that slide.
And you can't hear them right now, but JD Witherspoon is just talking all sorts of mess to MatPat right now, trying to throw him off his game. And speaking of throw, gets the grab right there, and that's going to help sort of turn the tide. No synergy burst quite yet. However, you see the support Pokemon ready to go for MatPat. Darkrai trying to wait for that Cresselia to be ready to call at any moment's notice. We're going to go ahead and shift phases here, and Empoleon still trying to get that early pressure on Darkrai in its face, up against the wall here, Vicky.
Already applying so much pressure against the wall, and this is where a lot of damage is going to be, but immediately with that grab, he's going to get the KO, and that's going to be game one to Empoleon.
And D1, MatPat, how about the combination of putting some pressure against your opponent in the corner on the wall? Your opponent then is going to be pretty aggressive to try and bounce back, most likely, or try to block to withstand all those attacks. Then you go in with a throw.
Which is why you saw MatPat actually successful right there in the last round. One thing about Empoleon too, he has some moves that can actually go through your counterattack, so it can be very scary defending against Empoleon. You want to keep him outside, which is why you see JD just trying to run away in zone.
MatPat took the first round. If he gets this one, that'll be a one-game victory for his team in this 3 out of 5 final championship. Empoleon, meanwhile, all that pressure up against the wall, D1. We see it time and time again.
He just keeps going in with the Aqua Jet. Finally, JD puts up the shield and gets grabbed for it.
I don't hear a whole lot of talking coming from JD at this point. Facing a huge deficit, 553 to 57, going to go ahead and deploy that synergy burst. You've got to release the Hoons at this point and try to fight back against MatPat. MatPat does have a synergy burst. Reshiram right here, the support Pokemon being cold, but that's blocked by Empoleon and MatPat. Darkrai going to try with that burst move, but it doesn't connect, D1.
It just looked like JD Witherspoon trying to use everything in his arsenal to bring it back, but unfortunately, MatPat took it over.
MatPat silencing JD with an impressive victory in that second round. Wasn't even close there, Vicky.
It looked like JD was actually trying to use his burst to go through any move that MatPat was going to throw at him, but unfortunately it was just too late, and he kind of used his burst attack a little bit too early, and unfortunately missing, kind of being crucial to the matchup.
So it's a best 3 out of 5 with the games in this championship match. So we're going to go ahead and see MatPat and JD Witherspoon face off again. So this will be for the second game. You've got 1 game point victory already for MatPat and Alistair. MatPat trying to get a second one. That means Alistair can come in and be the clinching point potentially. Let's see if JD Witherspoon learned anything from that last matchup. We saw Empoleon D1 really apply a lot of pressure in the face of Darkrai, not where Darkrai really wants to operate, and found himself pinned up against that wall for most of the match.
Yep, again, we see JD Witherspoon trying his best zone, but once Empoleon gets inside, it looks like all that little chip damage that he was able to get doesn't quite matter, so he's going to have to do a better job of keeping that wall up.
And that grab was negated by Empoleon, and once again, just going to work the combo and the pressure up against the wall. However, Darkrai able to counter that right there and finally getting some relief here, D1.
I actually like the fact that he was attacking more instead of trying to throw the projectile. But here it is, and Empoleon striking back with that ice beam.
And Vicky, Darkrai cannot just try to get Empoleon out of the zone. It's just too much Empoleon in your face at this point.
It's so many buttons being pressed in your face, and it really does work. There was not a counter to be seen inside.
MatPat with the victory, and you know there's some questions for JD when you start to see the palms turn to the sky and the shoulders shrug at this point. Nairo trying to step up, get some coaching for JD, your boy, struggling right now at this point. However, there's still a couple more rounds that can be played. Don't count out Darkrai, but what we're seeing here, D1, Empoleon, one of those rush Pokemon, living in that rush down zone as opposed to Darkrai, the zoner, not really getting a lot of breathing room between him and Empoleon.
Yeah, let me just tell you, Alistair actually really loves Empoleon. So to have Alistair helping out MatPat, that's a big boon to him right there. And look at it already, MatPat trying to maintain that health lead. Going for the grab, but this time JD Witherspoon being a little more aggressive, going right through that.
That was really smart of JD, actually, recognizing that he wanted to go for the grab when he held shield just slightly longer than he should have, and he immediately threw an attack to counter that.
And there it is again, we're going straight back into dual phase. Only 10 HP left on JD Witherspoon. He goes into the burst. I don't know if he's going to be able to connect it. Looking for an opportunity to confirm. Is this a chance?
Darkrai with that burst move in, yes, gonna grab Empoleon. This is gonna do a lot of damage here, D1.
Yes, 198 to be exact, and here is the infinite Eclipse.
However, MatPat and Empoleon still with a sizable lead, 254 to 42. Gonna be able to block the support Pokemon right here. Darkrai trying to keep Empoleon guessing, however, Empoleon getting in that area where it likes to operate best, right in the face of Darkrai, Vicky.
Empoleon himself has his burst mode active right there, and he's activating it as we speak. Are we gonna see the Deep Blue Monarch? That does a lot of damage, and right now with such a close game, it may be...
Oh, JD Witherspoon and Darkrai! Don't say goodnight yet! And here comes the talking once again. Turning off the mute button once he finally wins another round here. And you love the confidence. It ain't over. You're absolutely right. We've seen comebacks before. Meanwhile, MatPat still pretty confident. That was one that, you had such a sizable lead right there, D1. Do you think MatPat got maybe a little too defensive and didn't try to go on the offensive to close this one out?
He got a little bit too comfortable there. He said, you know what, I'm going to probably sit on my win, right, and just wait for my opponent to basically defeat himself.
So as these two teams face off, MatPat versus JD Witherspoon, it's a 3 out of 5 games for them to get 1 point. Then Alistair and Nairo will face off for another potential point. If both teams are at 1-1, we'll go to one final match that will determine the champion of our 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational. But let's get you back to the action here as Darkrai at 226. Now has turned the tables, Vicky, and has Empoleon up against the wall.
That's why you don't just relax after the second game. You may have won 2, but you never know when it's going to bring back around. Right now, as we're seeing, it could be really close. Is Empoleon going to finally take it?
That Reshiram going to knock Empoleon back, and that does some major damage. And going to also decrease the attack for Empoleon. Empoleon going into burst mode at this point. 14 health just for Darkrai. A puppy kiss would knock him out at this point, but no! Empoleon with the nice cross on JD Witherspoon and able to get the KO from behind.
This Empoleon is just unstoppable, man. It's out of control. Looks like Nairo's going to have to do a little bit more coaching on his part for JD Witherspoon.
So MatPat has now won 2 games. If MatPat can win 1 more game, he earns a point for the team of MatPat and Alistair as they advance to the next match. JD Witherspoon will have to win 3 games in a row now in order to try and get that vital point in this championship round. And so you look at JD, though, we saw a little bit more of a progression with that Darkrai, able to get Empoleon turned around and even had Empoleon up against the wall at one point.
Yeah, he was applying a lot of pressure. I think one of my favorite things is seeing how he mixed up his offense. He started going in the air, opting for the dive kicks.
I saw him opt for the dive kicks a few times, but I recognized how he started using Ice Beam to go towards Darkrai first, and when he had him against the wall, that's when he applied the very most pressure that we saw amongst the entire game in dual phase.
JD Witherspoon rolling with Darkrai once again. Meanwhile, MatPat going to go ahead and go with Empoleon. And D1, one thing we should also point out, all these stages are different sizes. So if you're Darkrai, you're going to want a larger stage potentially. Meanwhile, Empoleon seems to be really fine operating those smaller stages, pushing Darkrai up against the wall.
Oh yeah, absolutely. You could already see the match just started and immediately Empoleon cornering Darkrai. And also, let's not forget the synergy drops too. They're quite different depending on what stage you're on.
And what we're seeing in Empoleon, one of those rush down Pokemon that likes to be right in your face, really making life uncomfortable for Darkrai. Is a huge early advantage for MatPat, 571 to 72. Darkrai just trying to find some space, but no. Empoleon not even giving Darkrai a chance to tie his shoes, and very impressive victory by MatPat here, Vicky.
And as we saw around the end there, MatPat actually was able to use that move as an anti-air to catch him off guard and was able to follow with even a stronger string of attacks.
JD, I'm noticing there's fewer words after a loss. There's more after a victory, though. I like the consistency I see from you, though. Never stop smiling right there. Let's get set for our next round here. Now, this is critical right here, D1, because if Empoleon gets the victory, that's the third and decisive game point for MatPat and Alistair. That'll give them their first point of this match. Early pressure being applied by Empoleon, and the nice juggle right there, D1.
Yeah, and I also notice how Empoleon is also taking to the skies, making it very difficult for Darkrai to find quarter.
542 to just 4. Darkrai's going to need all the help it can get to try to keep Empoleon away from the victory. However, that Reshiram going to do some major damage and decrease the attack. However, Darkrai trying to back up, zone out. Empoleon missing a couple times. Darkrai going to negate the throw, get some damage on Empoleon. This could be something incredible. Here we go. Synergy burst activated for Darkrai. Hanging on the ropes with just 76 health, but here you go, Vicky.
Oh, but you cannot shield that, and that is exactly what we're talking about, Jordan. You cannot shield that. You can't just shield that burst.
You can't shield it, and there's no lifeguard on duty for Darkrai, so that's going to go ahead and do it. That's going to do it for the final round, the game, and the point goes to MatPat and Alistair in our championship match. And that's what can throw people off with that specific burst move, Vicky, because you're thinking, all I got to do is block it. I'm good. No, fam, you're going to get drowned in the water.
Absolutely not. You need to try to jump over that. That is called Deep Blue Monarch, and it deals exactly 220 HP. You have to watch out for that, and you have to keep your distance when you see Empoleon have that burst, and that's when he's able to apply all that pressure, which could be really hard to get away from.
And right now, looks like we're going to have 2 pros take the stage.
I thought we just had some pros taking the stage. Well, MatPat looked like the pro versus JD Witherspoon right there. My goodness. But yes, go back. We've got 2 pros very seasoned, especially Alistair.
Yes,
Alistair been one of the staples of this community.
Yes, from the Pokkén tournament community, Alistair, a well-known Suicune main, and we have Nairo, who is actually a top-level Super Smash Bros. 4 Wii U professional.
Well, let's see who they go with. We have Mewtwo versus Suicune. Alistair with that Suicune. Suicune going to really enjoy zoning Mewtwo. Meanwhile, Mewtwo all around. Does Mewtwo try to get up in the face of Suicune, or does Mewtwo try to play the same game as Suicune and zone out as well, too?
This is going to be really interesting because early on, when Pokkén tournament came out for Wii U, Nairo did play Mewtwo. He had a pretty solid Mewtwo, but Alistair, he stuck to the game. So it's going to be, I think it's going to be pretty cool to see how Nairo's fundamentals as a pro player for Smash come into play here.
Nairo versus Suicune, early damage applied by Suicune. Suicune up in the face of Mewtwo, which is interesting. Typically, we see Suicune use that zoning, however, able to perfectly read Mewtwo's attacks here, Vicky.
And you can see right here, yes, Suicune does excel immensely with long range, but he's not having it right now, switching immediately to dual phase and nearly getting a perfect and landing that perfect, not even taking any damage.
And I think one thing we have to keep an eye open for is that mirror code. You saw Nairo try to zone with projectiles, but immediately Suicune absorbed that and just dished out damage with the mirror code.
Suicune's so difficult if you're going to play that zone versus zone matchup, and usually when you've got 2 Pokemon that like to zone each other, it's really just a matter of out-zoning the other, using the timer as your friend. But we saw Suicune that last match really do a fine job of the up-close rush-down face-off, and right here, countering once again, knocking Mewtwo back, has Mewtwo up against the wall. Mewtwo, though, able to back off Suicune.
And right now we have Alistair not even looking at the screen as he's playing against Nairo. What is going on here?
Alistair just looking at the Jumbotron right now, and that's putting some salt in the Kool-Aid right there, folks. Meanwhile, Suicune able to get the combo on Mewtwo. Nairo just furious right now. Let's see if that applies to the playstyle of Mewtwo. Meanwhile, Alistair just so cool, calm, and composed. Here comes the support Pokemon from Mewtwo, but no! Suicune with the grab and the juggle up against the wall in the air, and this one might be over here soon, Vicky.
This man does not even need to look at the screen. When I grow up, I want to be just like Alistair. As we just see right here, Alistair taking it over Nairo.
Alistair with the KO, gonna go ahead and take that first game point. Alistair needs to win 2 more games, and that will be the championship for MatPat and Alistair. Alistair, my goodness, If you didn't believe before that Alistair was sitting on top of the throne of this community, I think that was proof right there, D1.
Yeah, this guy coming out of NorCal, super strong player, very well established in the Pokkén tournament community, and his Suicune is nothing to mess with.
Alistair and that Suicune had no issues whatsoever with Mewtwo in that previous game. Let's see if Mewtwo can try to find some type of adjustment. It seemed like Mewtwo, when it tried to get up close to Suicune, couldn't really do anything. Suicune did such a good job of just reading the attacks from Mewtwo and applying that pressure.
Yeah, you know, Mewtwo, one of his best tools in field phase is that homing attack, but it looked like Alistair already had an answer for that. And here it is, Nairo trying to see if he can use the counter attack. He manages to get the Pierce with that Hyper Beam.
Nairo and the Pierce with the Hyper Beam going for the grab. That gets negated. However, Suicune misses on the attack. A nice cross and reversal from Nairo. However, Suicune able to counter that against Vicky.
And all that patience that we're seeing from Alistair, not rewarded though, as Nairo answers back, switching the phase once again. He's trying to get up, but wow, fantastic counter, but it's not going to be doing anything.
Nairo showing some signs of life in this second game. However, Suicune knocking back Mewtwo. Suicune hasn't really operated in that zoning mode yet, but that'll do some major damage there. 420 to 115 advantage for Suicune. Gonna knock back Mewtwo, go back into that support Pokemon. Synergy Burst is there for Alistair if he wants to use it.
Synergy Burst is there, and when Suicune uses Synergy Burst, it is a long-range counter. That's something you have to keep into consideration when he's activated in Synergy Burst.
And D1, how about the chip damage that was applied by Suicune with that Synergy Burst? That's going to do some major damage, even if you're Mewtwo trying to block it.
And the projectile was just so hard to even jump over. As you see, it got bigger in burst mode.
First round goes to Alistair and the Suicune. Another victory in this round. That'll be the second game point for Alistair. Meanwhile, Suicune, Mewtwo getting a feel for each other at this point. The nice grab by Suicune. Let's go ahead and shift phases right here. Both players have their support Pokemon ready to go. Meanwhile, now here's Suicune D1 operating in that zone.
Just staying right outside and actually countering that projectile from the top. And there it is. Grab opportunity. Should be getting the shift. And this is going to be quite difficult dealing with Suicune here in field phase.
And Alistair is applying so much pressure, understanding that he's getting away with all these grabs because of all the pressure that he has applied to Nairo.
Alistair misses with the support Pokemon, however, some pressure, but no, Mewtwo able to get that ground attack knockback Suicune, but Suicune with a nice little juggle and a combo, and that'll do it right there. But no, 3 health left for Mewtwo, but facing 458 with Suicune, that's going to be a tough hill to climb here, D1.
It just looks like right now Alistair is content to stay back, fire an Aurora Beam, waiting for the opportunity to just take off that last little bit of HP.
And what's interesting is when you try to do that chip damage to end the round, you will stay alive at this point. Mewtwo with the grab and the throw up against the wall, though. Suicune just trying to find that last little hit. Mewtwo regenerating a little bit of health right there, but not enough as Suicune gets the hit on Mewtwo. That'll be the second game point for Alistair. One more game point, and they will claim this 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational Championship.
As you saw around the end there, he was actually canceling his counter, which is why he kept drifting back, trying to space himself properly so that way if Nairo ever committed to an action, he was always right there to commit after that.
And if you notice right there, Nairo fought his hardest to be able to get inside of the zoning from Alistair, but the moment Alistair was able to find just one slight opening, he dashed right underneath and went to the other side. He's quite content with just zoning.
And D1, what do you make about the support Pokemon choice here for Nairo and Mewtwo? Meanwhile, we've seen Suicune go with the Litten each time.
You know, going with the Frogadier, this is a character that shoots out the water gun, right? And it allows people to apply some pressure. It fires off once, there's a slight gap, and it fires again, allowing you to possibly sneak in the grab sometimes.
Mewtwo and Nairo, though, getting some major damage in those combos and juggles up against the wall. Suicune facing an early deficit in this one, 504 to 257. Suicune, how about those crosses, D1? Jumping over Mewtwo and then coming down with that attack on the backside.
It is just really difficult for Nairo to deal with. And here he is on the defensive, but gets the dive kick right there and some wake-up pressure.
Mewtwo trying to give Suicune a taste of its own medicine, and Litten getting the party started at that point.
And the reason you saw so much damage right there was because Alistair had low HP.
Right now, both fighters just a couple of hits away from a knockout at this point. Alistair and Suicune trying to zone out Mewtwo and Nairo, but Alistair and Suicune, they come back after that deficit early on and able to get the KO. And that Litten support Pokemon, Vicky, completely turned the tide of this match.
Yeah, that was fantastic use of Litten in particular, because when you do have low HP, Litten does deal more damage depending on the HP that you currently have.
How about the confidence of Alistair there, D1, to wait till his health was down low enough to know that Litten was going to connect and do some major damage.
Yeah, that was really smart stuff right there by Alistair. But he finds himself in the corner, and Nairo drops the combo, actually.
And Mewtwo and Nairo doing a fine job this game of keeping Suicune up against the wall. Suicune trying to zone out Mewtwo. Huge advantage right now for Mewtwo, 436 and 117. That's Nairo's Mewtwo, Alistair, Suicune, and right now we see Suicune trying to juggle Mewtwo up against the wall and grabbing the grab right here, Vicky.
Yes, he was able to juggle him against the wall because when Nairo was trying to jump away from him to cross him up, he used an anti-air to prevent that from happening, leaving him against the wall and taking more damage.
Oh, and Nairo and Mewtwo with the victory in D1. We saw Mewtwo get Alistair and Suicune up against the wall and get those juggles, and that did some major damage early on.
And another thing we should talk about too is the counter-attack usage right there by Nairo. You can jump over it as it is a shockwave on the ground, but look, he's able to connect with it yet again. Mixing up Alistair with that dive kick, has him in the corner with the Psycho Cut. He has no answers.
Excellent use of that wall, and Mewtwo gonna go ahead and use the Synergy Burst. Mega Mewtwo right now against Litten. Oh no, Litten connects on that support Pokemon hit. Synergy Burst capable right now for Suicune. However, Suicune gonna counter right there, Vicky.
Yes, because Mewtwo's burst is actually a short-range grab. He was able to take advantage of that situation and turn it around without getting any extra damage from that burst, activating his own burst for an answer towards that.
Here comes Suicune with its burst move. Gonna miss though. Mewtwo does a fine job blocking it. Mewtwo with the corner up against the wall against Alistair and that Suicune. And the grab on Suicune, and that will do it for the round. Very impressive 2 victories. That game point goes to Nairo and Mewtwo. And just when it looked like Alistair and Suicune were gonna run away with it, you had Alistair looking at the jumbo screen. Nairo able to adjust his game and get an impressive victory right there.
Are we gonna see a comeback? I think we're gonna see a comeback.
Oh, don't call it a comeback. Yeah, we certainly doing a great job here. It's very exciting. And D1, how about the change in play style for Nairo and Mewtwo? Really getting a lot more pressure in Suicune's face, making things uncomfortable, and really using that wall and some of those juggle combos.
Oh, indeed. You know, it looks like there was a severe lack of block right there from Alistair. You know, I believe he got a little bit too confident and probably thought that Nairo wasn't going to give him, you know, that much trouble. And because of that, Nairo was able to take it. So we'll see what happens here going into the next round.
2-1. Alistair leads. If Alistair wins this game, they will take the match point and the championship of this 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational. However, Nairo won the last game. Still has plenty of things to say. Facing an early deficit right now, 517 to 331. Advantage, Alistair with that Suicune, but Mewtwo getting some huge damage right there, D1. Able to push back Suicune. Now both fighters kind of just feeling each other out. Mewtwo going up in close for the nice, impressive juggle once again, D1.
And beautiful stuff right there by Nairo. We have Alistair with 157 damage. He has the Pokkén, which gives him a double jump and increased damage.
Mewtwo able to counter that dash attack from Suicune. Suicune, though, trying to get Mewtwo into a combo. Nice little juggle right there to buy some space for Alistair and that Suicune, Vicky.
And this is exactly what you want to see in dual phase. You want to see all the racket percent right there. You want to see all that damage. And immediately when he switches back to field phase, you see all that different types of reverse rolls where there's...
Oh, Mewtwo, though, with that
my goodness!
Just comes out of nowhere, D1. And right when it seemed like Alistair and Suicune had Mewtwo and Nairo on the ropes, we saw that that combo in the middle of the level that just juggled Mewtwo for so much damage. Mewtwo stayed calm and patient, and with its back up against the wall, unleashed that Hyper Beam. Let's get to the next round in this one. Mewtwo, as we mentioned, had that early victory on Suicune. Now we see Suicune trying to give Mewtwo some juggling up against the wall here, Vicky.
That was a great example of the patience at the the end of the game. Nairo did not want to overcommit too much. He held shield, and immediately when he saw that opening, he took advantage of that and took the first round.
Alistair with the early advantage, 426 to 120, trying to get some more damage on Mewtwo, doing a fine job of zoning Mewtwo out right here, D1.
Oh, and here's what I was talking about. So much damage and the ability to double jump right there with Pokkén. This is going to change Pokkén Tournament forever.
Well, we saw the support Pokemon of Eevee being used, and that's going to go ahead and buff the attack for Suicune, and Suicune able to land some critical hits during that time that Mewtwo wasn't able to block. When you have that buff at that time, that's when the round goes so quickly, D1.
Oh, indeed, and right here it is again. The zoning from Alistar, but Nairo just getting right inside.
1-1 each on the round. A round victory here for Suicune would claim the championship for Matt, Pat, and Alistar. However, let's see if Nairo and Mewtwo have some other things to say about that to force yet another game. Meanwhile, early advantage right now for Suicune, 433 to 357. Suicune trying to zone Mewtwo at this point. Up in the face, Mewtwo able to rally back, go with that jungle right there, Vicky, and now he's got Suicune on the ropes up against the wall.
Now this is the close range situation. This is not the position where Alistar wants to be, but immediately kind of getting away from Mewtwo and answering his own with Litten.
Alistar trying to get some chip damage, but there's that hyper beam yet again. Here comes synergy mode for Suicune. Can Suicune land some critical hits? But no, the grab by Mewtwo gonna knock Suicune up against the wall. One sliver of life left for Suicune. Suicune gonna go ahead and use that burst move. Doesn't work though, gets the hit on Mewtwo. 230 to 10. Let's see if Suicune can create something unbelievable here. Oh, it's got Mewtwo up against the wall. This is for the championship if Suicune can counter back, but no!
Not enough!
Mewtwo and Nairo.
Just enough with that chip damage.
With their tournament lives on the line and just 40 health, D1, Mewtwo and Nairo able to stay calm and compose a few breaths and able to force yet another game.
It looks like we're about to go into the final match, if I'm not mistaken.
So here's what's interesting. If Nairo takes the victory,
Yes.
Nairo will get the game point, Nairo versus MatPat in the third match, which could be very interesting. Nothing against MatPat, but he might not be the caliber of player that Alistar is. So, is this essentially the tournament right here for Alistar and MatPat?
Well, it looks like we already have countering the homing attack with that counter attack from Suicune. He goes forward, and just like I told you before, you can jump over Mewtwo's counter attack. So much damage right now inflicted on Nairo. Two
mythical Pokemon battling it out for the 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational Championship. Nairo with Mewtwo, Alistar with that Suicune. Right now, Suicune with the 498 to 270 advantage. Support gauge max for both of them. Look at Mewtwo and that Eevee looking for a few buffs here, Vicky, in that attack if he could use that support Pokemon.
Nairo finally able to rack up some damage on Alistar for some time there. I was starting to get
time.
It seems like Nairo's holding on to his own right now, pressuring Alistar so hard, switching it back to field phase.
Nairo able to get some pressure up against the wall, but Suicune going to keep Mewtwo at bay, and that is one round victory right here in this decisive game, either forcing a third match in this championship round, or Alistar and MatPat can go ahead and take the victory right now. MatPat getting that 3-0 sweep on JD Witherspoon. Yes, JD, we couldn't let you forget about the sweep. My apologies here. They've got the brooms out. Here we go. 630 to 512. Early advantage right now for Suicune over Mewtwo. Suicune going to miss right there. Mewtwo able to reverse, get a couple attacks behind. Here comes that wall juggle, D1.
And there it is with the wall spell as well, doing an extra 30 HP. And you see right now, Nairo just trying to lock down Alistar, but just moving around and shows no fear when it comes to this homing attack.
A victory here for Alistar will seal the deal in the championship for MatPat and Alistar. Meanwhile, Nairo, Mewtwo trying to force a third round, and if they can, force a third game in the match.
As you saw right there, he was actually able to use low stance to crouch right under that beam.
Alistar and the Suicune trying to get some more attacks on Mewtwo. That's going to be critical right there. 85 health for Mewtwo. Here comes the synergy burst from Suicune. Suicune going to try and time up that synergy move. Is this it? No! Mewtwo able to block, but no! Suicune able to counter the dash attack. And that is your championship. Alistar, MatPat, your champions of the 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational. Your thoughts on just the way that Suicune was able to close that out?
Well, overall, the zoning was just impeccable right there by Alistar, and his counters to Nairo's zoning with, first off, crouching underneath the Hyper Beam, using the Mirror Coat to also send ranged attacks in field phase right back at Nairo, made it very difficult for Nairo in the long range.
Very, very impressive. So as the champions hug it out with our runner-ups, sorry, no participation medals given out here for our runner-ups. There's only one champion here in this tournament. You saw Alistar with that Suicune, and how impressive was it for Nairo and the Mewtwo to really battle back, because we thought Alistar was going to run away this one with Suicune.
Nairo definitely had a lot of mix-ups when it came to his offense. There were times where if he was getting attacked, he would use the side strike, and other times when he was in Alistar's face and you'd expect to grab, he'd go for the dive kick.
So JD and Nairo, you guys didn't win, so I have to politely ask you to leave the stage at this point. Give it up for JD and Nairo. However, Alistar, MatPat, Please step to the center of the stage here, Alistair and Matt Pat, because we have some special guests to present our awards for our champions. Please welcome from the Pokkén Company, Mr. Ishihara, and 2 developers from Bandai Namco Studios, Mr. Hoshino and Mr. Suzaki, to present the awards to our champions of the 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational. Please welcome them to the stage.
Hi. じゃあ、ポッケントーナメントデラックスインビテーショナル優勝おめでとうございます。
Congratulations on your victory here at the Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational.
我々からのプライズをお受け取りください。
We do have a prize to present to you, gentlemen.
おめでとうございます。
Congratulations.
Thank you once again. Now the fun doesn't stop here though. We have one more exhibition match. We have the developers from Bandai Namco Studios, Mr. Hoshino and Mr. Suzaki. They're gonna take on Matt, Pat, and Alistair in one exhibition round. So please, Mr. Hoshino, Mr. Suzaki, please step up to the stand here. Matt, Pat, Alistair, please take your side of the screen. Mr. Hoshino, Mr. Suzaki, please come this way. Mr. Hoshino first. And so we've got the developers versus the champions here, D1 and Vicky. What are your thoughts about Matt Pat, the YouTube personality, taking on someone that developed this game?
I mean, these guys made the game, dude. It's definitely going to be a really interesting situation, seeing how Matt Pat and Alistair are going up against Hoshino-san and Suzaki-san. Like,
exactly what D1 said. These are the gentlemen who created Pokkén Tournament. This is just going to be some other level. It's going to take a lot more than just knowing the basic fundamentals to be able to catch them by surprise.
I mean, you know, they still have a pro in Alistair who's on Matt Pat's side, right? But, I mean, who knows? Like, these guys right now, they don't even look phased that they're going up against Alistair and Matt Pat. They're like, this is just another day. I mean, we've seen the game way before it's even been released to the masses, so they probably have a couple tricks up their sleeve.
First, taking on Matt Pat and that Empoleon. So we saw Empoleon, Vicky, with a lot of success getting in the face of its opponents. However, Krogunk has no problem playing that rush style play. He's going to want to make sure that he can read and counter very well. So Matt Pat, this will be exciting, taking on one of the developers here, D1. And if you look at Krogunk right now doing a fine job of sort of zoning out Empoleon, getting a feel for its attacks, doing a great job blocking as well too.
Yeah, we're going to see the rush down right now from Empoleon. Actually, wait, getting countered. The Krogunk jumping into the skies, making it very difficult. Mr. Suzaki, look at his Krogunk go. A character who has a lot of RNG when it comes to his special attacks. I wonder if he even knows what's going to happen next.
Mr. Suzaki keeping Empoleon out of range and doing a great job with Krogunk. Krogunk, as we mentioned, can kind of play that all-around style as well too, and making sure to just keep Empoleon far away and then using those dash attacks. But nice counter there, Vicky, from Empoleon, and the grab from Empoleon also.
Immediately changing the phase, and you know, Krogunk actually does excel immensely when it comes to speed. He's incredibly fast, but unfortunately, with that RNG style like he has, he can honestly just deframe himself when it comes to this burst. Oh my goodness, but with another phase shift, he's applying so much pressure right now. Immediately using Litten with his low HP, dealing all that damage as you just saw right there on Matt Pat.
Mr. Suzaki's a bad man right there, getting the victory over Empoleon, and how about that? Turning it around. That was a little bit of a rope-a-dope right there, D1. Sort of make Matt Pat feel good about himself, let him know, yeah, kid, I understand you're playing this game, but I developed this thing.
My hands are in my face right now, dude. I can't. I just can't.
Let's get set for the next round here between Empoleon, selected by Matt Pat, and Krogunk being used by Mr. Suzaki. Mr. Suzaki from Bandai Namco Studios knows everything you need to know about this game right here. Able to jump over the top of Empoleon, and what we're seeing from Krogunk, D1, is a fine job of zoning out Empoleon. Empoleon not having a lot of chances to get in the face of Krogunk and apply some pressure.
Yeah, interestingly enough, while he's using that poison stick, he can't kill the opponent. Oh my gosh!
Did you see that movement?
He's just, and you saw him just chilling on the floor as well. Look at the posing.
Krogunk, flex on him, why don't you? 419 to 268 advantage at this point. Krogunk just playing around with Empoleon. Here comes Empoleon using that synergy burst. Here comes the burst move, but I think Krogunk's going to be in the air and avoids it there, Vicky.
That's exactly what we were talking about earlier, and that's the best way to avoid Empoleon's burst.
Empoleon with the grab against Krogunk, up in the air, going to knock Mr. Suzaki back though. Mr. Suzaki down 114 to 275. Empoleon with some more pressure right there. Oh, 2 health left for Mr. Suzaki. 1 health, however, nice little crossover. Here comes Krogunk trying to turn the tables here, D1.
Oh my goodness, mixing up his landing, but it's not enough. Matt Pack taking it over Mr. Suzaki.
The constant, consistent pressure by MatPat towards the second half of that round right there. Vicky able to get the victory, and Mr. Suzaki and MatPat go to a 3rd round to decide this game here.
And did you see around the end how Krogunk extended his pouches on his cheeks to be able to flow over the opponent to try to mix up his landing and confuse the opponent?
And here it is right now, chilling out in field phase is Mr. Suzaki, but gets caught right there by MatPat. Let's see MatPat's rush down that he was able to do to JD earlier today.
Mr. Suzaki and Krogunk able to counter right there. 424 deficit though for Mr. Suzaki. However, going to drop down, get some damage, and look at the debuff that it just applied to Empoleon here, D1.
Yes, right there, the defense is lowered, which means that you're going to see some more damage off of MatPat whenever Mr. Suzaki strikes.
Meanwhile, Krogunk and that Litten gonna miss with that support Pokemon tag, but here comes the synergy burst from Krogunk. Gonna try and get some massive damage here. Big hit, is this gonna be enough? No, misses with the burst move. However, able to still zone out Empoleon. 341, 113 advantage. Winner of this round wins the game. Empoleon and MatPat trying to fight back. No, Krogunk gonna break through the grab. Flexes on him. 40 health left for Empoleon. Empoleon gonna miss with the swipe. Krogunk going to the air this time. And the crossover by Mr. Suzaki. Stone cold killer. MatPat falling to Mr. Suzaki. Very impressive performance by Krogunk and Mr. Suzaki. And D1, how about Krogunk? Operated by Mr. Suzaki, able to leap into the air, crossover Empoleon at the end of that.
Literally one word, unpredictable. Mr. Suzaki, going up against him right there on stage, says, you're only gonna get 1 chance to beat me, and unfortunately you lost. You'll never get to face me again.
Alistair's gonna bat clean up for MatPat and Alistair. Gonna be interesting to see if Alistair goes with that Suicune. Meanwhile, we have Mr. Hoshino. Who will Mr. Hoshino go with here? As you have Alistair, as you talked about before, D1, at the top of this community, and we've seen him play so well with a Mewtwo and a Suicune, but now you're facing off against one of the developers of this game.
Yeah, Hoshino-san definitely might have some tricks up his sleeve as well. We actually have Alistair not going with Suicune.
Interesting.
Okay.
Interesting selection by Alistair. You got to figure he's well-rounded in every single character. But we're going to go back to Gen 1 here for a classic throwdown on the schoolyard of Charizard against Pikachu at this point. Litten going to be chosen for that support Pokemon here, Vicky. And right now, in the foreground, you're going to have Charizard, controlled by Mr. Hoshino. Meanwhile, Alistair going with Pikachu. And Pikachu, one of those players that's a little bit more well-rounded. Meanwhile, our first sort of power player in Charizard here, Vicky.
Charizard really likes to play mid-range, but you also have to take into consideration that he does fly as well, so that could be a way for him to mix up Pikachu, as we saw in the last game. Prone to do the same thing.
Pikachu with a nice juggle right there, gonna back off Charizard. Let's go ahead and shift phases at this point, connecting with a couple of projectiles here, and really what we've seen from Alistair, D1, is a fine job of taking advantage of that field phase.
Yeah, and it looks like he's not even afraid of the Fire Punch, which is an option that Charizard does have. Here it is. Great follow-up by Alistair, taking that first round over Hoshino-san.
Pikachu and Alistair taking that round. If they can get this round, they'll go ahead and take that game here, Vicky.
And we saw all that pressure from Alistair because Pikachu in particular plays very close range and is incredibly fast. And when he's in mid-range, it's a little bit difficult for him to rack up all that extra damage. But we're not really seeing that too much right now. He's gonna have to try to bring this back.
Charizard with the grab and the throw. It's going to do some major damage on Pikachu. 600, 266. Let's serve it up again right here, D1.
Yes, absolutely. Mr. Hoshino has that tech. Keep your eyes open.
Mr. Hoshino. Huge advantage over Alistair and that Pikachu. Let's see if Pikachu can bounce back. They're trying to get the cross. Blocked by Charizard. Charizard going to knock back Pikachu. Charizard bringing down some pain. However, Charizard with the third grab of the match. Mr. Mr. Hoshino, unbelievable. Able to keep Alistair at bay and connect on not one, not two, but 3 grabs in that round.
Absolutely. You can tell this guy is a master of rock, paper, scissors, or janken, as they would say as well. This is out of control. Using the grabs to beat the counterattack, getting extra damage because it is a critical hit. Here we have 3rd round with Alistair versus Hoshino-san.
Do you think Alistair's a little starstruck at this point? Maybe that's getting into his head, maybe throwing him off possibly.
I mean, I would be.
Pikachu getting some early pressure on Charizard. Winner of this round will decide the game between Mr. Hoshino and Alistair. Meanwhile, Charizard getting that block, getting the hit on Pikachu. Pikachu, though, able to try and counter. Charizard doing a fine job of reading and blocking there, Vicky.
And it seemed like that for a little bit, that Alistair was going to be able to maneuver himself around Mr. Hoshino, but it isn't enough assist coming, so another grab from Mr. Hoshino. How is he going to avoid this?
Mr. Hoshino has Alistair seeing stars with all of these grabs right now. Charizard able to deal and try to get through a couple of tough projectiles. Meanwhile, Pikachu connects with the counter, though, and Pikachu able to knock Charizard back. Let's shift phases here. Pikachu, light, nimble, mobile. Charizard trying to get in his mug. Meanwhile, Mr. Hoshino down to 146. Let's get some Mega Charizard X here. Mega Charizard trying to put some pressure. Here comes Linton. Oh, that's going to connect on Charizard, knock it back. 99 health for Mr. Hoshino. Here comes Pikachu in burst mode. Let's see if Pikachu can connect with that burst move right here. Here comes Popplio using some support Pokemon health. Pikachu still in burst mode. Charizard getting some attacks here. Charizard with a little bit more health and a couple of boosts right here too, D1.
But right there, that counter from that fire punch, and it looks like it's getting really intense here. The dive kick,
Oh my goodness, Mr. Hoshino takes it!
Mr. Hoshino battles back and gets the victory over Alistair. How impressive was that, D1?
I mean, Mr. Hoshino, what did I tell you? What did I tell you? The man is one of the developers right here, the directors of the game. He knows a lot about the game. When it came to the mix-ups, it looks like Alistair's Pikachu just couldn't do it. He was getting caught by many seismic tosses. You saw him go for that tail whip every time, going into the flight, and then just immediate seismic toss. It was super, super difficult to deal with. And right now we have Alistair seeing stars, just like Jordan said before.
We were talking about being starstruck, but my goodness, I was incredibly starstruck just by watching that. I can't believe how Alistair may feel right now.
Oh, definitely. But a big thank you to Ishihara-san, Suzaki-san, and Hoshino-san for bringing Pokkén Tournament Deluxe to the Switch. We are thankful.
Very impressive right there. They get their artwork, their awards. Give it up for Mr. Hoshino, Mr. Suzaki, Matt, Pat, Alistair, your champions of the 2017 Pokkén Tournament Deluxe Invitational. Stick around, we got the Arms Open Invitational coming later today. Give it up one more time for them.